Hello, everyone. We're going to present on k'tles7et'h First Nations Citizens Census that we did in 2022. And I'm just going to go quickly through a little bit what we're going to cover. We're going to do an introduction and the motivation and partnership of the census, what the KCFN Citizen Census is, how did we do it, what we heard, and lessons learned from it. So that's the general what we're going to do. My name is Steiner Vage, and I am speaking to you from my home in Kayukit on the traditional territory of the Kayukit people. And I am in program and project development for KCFN today.
My name is Evie Morin, and I'm speaking on behalf of EcoPlan International, a community planning consultancy based on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations in Vancouver, and we provided the technical support for this project.
So a little bit about KCFN. KCFN is an amalgamation of two nations, the Kayukit Nation and the k'tles7et'h Nation, and they amalgamated back in the early 1960s. And KCFN has about 600 members, and it's roughly spread out with 200 people living in community in Kayukit, where you see in the picture. And we have about 200 living in Campbell River and 200 people that live beyond, mainly on the island, but Lower Mainland and in the States as well. We're located on the northwest coast of Vancouver Island, and we're only accessible by air or by water. So it's a pretty remote community. What you see here is one of the posters that we use to communicate why we did the census. And the idea of doing a census for KCFN came from a place of really not quite knowing what the people wanted. So we wanted to hear from the people, like for them to guide us on their priorities. I was the director of community services for k'tles7et'h from 2017 to 2023, and often felt that I was guessing and not knowing what people wanted or needed. And so there was no previous data to use to support decisions. And I often felt like I was just throwing darts in every direction, hoping that something would stick. So our population from away from home is even less known in many ways. And so doing this was a way of just getting to know our people. And we also wanted to create a benchmark for where are we at. And that way, when we do a census again, we can see if we're actually making a difference on and change the things that people want to see change in. The next step for us was to find a partner to do this with. We'd never done anything like this before, and we really needed help. And so we did a lot of research in trying to find who would be the best fit for KCFN. And we ended up reaching out to EcoPlan. EcoPlan had a very good reputation and also a lot of experience in doing similar work and census work with other nations. And it was just a good fit for us. It was also a little bit of a leap of faith to go to another outside agency to do this work, because it's sensitive and data gathering, and it's something that we had to really consider going and doing this work. But we've been feeling confident and grateful for this. For the work that EcoPlan has done with us from the beginning and still today. And we are still doing work with EcoPlan to this day. So together with EcoPlan, we started the conversations about our idea of what our purpose for doing it was. And EcoPlan took those conversations and started helping with generating questions and putting a layout together for the census. I'm going to hand it over to Evie.
Thank you. So the KCFN Citizen Census, it's a comprehensive community survey, meaning it asks questions about all aspects of the KCFN community. And it was a tool to help KCFN hear more what the citizens have to say and to help them better understand community needs. And if there are resources to repeat it, it's a way to track progress as a self-governing nation. So our aim was to have one KCFN citizen aged 18 and over per household on and off KCFN lands to participate in the census. And they could do this online on their computer, on their phone, like the picture here. They could also do a hard copy version in Cayucit or Campbell River. And it took them about 20 to 30 minutes, and it asked them questions about themselves as an individual and also their household. And then when they participated, they were offered a $25 gift card. And all their data was confidential, private, and anonymous. So any personal identifying information was separate from their responses. And then we created these data sets and also summarized it in some reports so that citizens could hear what was shared, and also staff and leadership could understand what sort of information would be available. And KCFN maintains full control and ownership of the data. And again, the idea was that it would be a tool that could be repeated every 4 to 5 years. And one of the first things that EcoPlan and KCFN did together was create a data management plan. And it was guided by the OCAP principles developed by the First Nations Information Governance Center. So that's ownership, control, access, and possession. And also the understanding that information isn't just about numbers and surveys, it's about culture, identity, traditions, and self-determination. And so because the things that citizens would be sharing, they're so important, they're so sensitive, we wanted to respect that by following a high standard of data security and management. But when we created this plan, we realized that at the time, KCFN didn't have some of the infrastructure that would be needed to do this in a good way. So that was really at the heart of our partnership between KCFN and EcoPlan, because at EcoPlan, we have access to, for data collection, we used Qualtrics survey software, which is an industry standard polling software. And then for storing data, we have the Ignite online server, and both of these have security measures that can be put in place to protect the data. And so EcoPlan stores the anonymous raw data on this server. And then KCFN also has the data set, the anonymous data set, and the reports that we created. And then one day, if or when KCFN has this infrastructure, then EcoPlan will go ahead and remove it from our own server. But right now, it's stored safely there.
So as I said, EcoPlan was really instrumental in putting the questions together. And together we settled on five main areas that we wanted to focus the questions. And it was in housing, employment, education, language and culture, and health. And in this process, we also utilized a few other contractors to just kind of read over and make sure that the questions were sensitive and appropriately put together. And we also had some internal discussions within KCFN interdepartmentally too, that it wasn't just out of community services, but we also talked a little bit with the Department of Education to make sure that they also felt like this was suitable for their work as well. In the delivery plan was also a huge part of the work to do this, because it's complex. So once the census was ready to go, we started communicating to our people in various ways what we were doing. So whether it was a handout or posters that we put up in our offices and letters that went out to people, we also attended events and such where we kept talking about it to create this awareness and understanding of why and to get people to participate. they could complete the survey between June and November in 2022. We had some back and forth between keeping it open longer and shorter and stuff like that. Um, but that was something we just had to kind of massage as we did it because things change and you just have to be flexible. And ideally, we would have had a designated staff to kind of spearhead uh, contacting people and being with people and those kinds of things. But we didn't have the capacity and awareness that would actually be really helpful. And that was a good lesson learned. Um, we did prioritize the online version of it to be filled out. And we did discuss a lot how we would share the link, whether it would be email or password or an anonymous link. And we ended up on using an anonymous link for all the citizens because it would be the least have the least barrier to complete it. And so some may not have an email, and some might need to come in and do the census on a computer available at the office and so forth. Um, it also was very different to deliver it whether it was on KCFN lands in Cayucit or away from home because um, two very different demographics. And so we know where everyone lives in Cayucit, but we would think that that would be easy, but it was actually not that easy to get people to fill it out. And people were reluctant, or we would give out the flyer and people would say they would do it when they got home, and they just never got around to doing it. So that is another piece of a lesson learned. Off KCFN lands, it helped that we do have an office in Campbell River that people could come into, where we have the most people living away from home, and we had posters and we went to events there too, and to promote people to do it, and we helped them, and we used phones, Facebook, Messenger, email, whatever is available. We tried to communicate with people to do it.
So now I'll just quickly cover some of the things that we heard and that KCFN was able to learn through the census from the citizens. So first of all, the census represented in the end about 30% of KCFN's population. And most of the responses were from Cayucit and Campbell River, which are the main population centers. So overall, relative to British Columbia, the population is quite young, with more than 50% under 30 and less than 10% over 65. And 50% of citizens, of respondents, said they didn't feel very connected to their culture, but they were really interested in learning and participating in more cultural activities. And 78% of respondents said they had some level of understanding of Nuu-chah-nulth, whether that was being able to understand words and phrases or speak it. And 77% said their health was good or excellent. And when they were asked what would be the #1 priority for KCFN to address, the #1 was addressing educational needs. And finally, 65% said they were satisfied with their quality of life.
So currently the census is supporting a few initiatives that we are doing. We're in the process of developing a health and wellness plan, which is leaning on the data we got from the census. We're also in the process of building our own multi-generational family healing program, and we're building an official community plan update. And it's also supporting a lot of the proposals and a lot of the things that the grants that we are seeking, because we can speak from a place of knowing after having talked to our people. So it's helping our work moving forward. And we did get to know our citizens better. And we have used the data for seeking the funding that specifically aims to meet those needs, and share our priorities with other agencies on the outside. One of the challenges that we had, which is probably why a lot of people maybe didn't do it, was that it was pretty lengthy and time consuming. Um, and a possible solution to that may be that we create two next time, that we have one shorter that can be done a little bit more frequently, that is more focused on programming and people's priorities and needs, while we still remain having a longer and a more high level census similar to the one we did right now. Um, let's see here. Um, Another success was the piggybacking, sharing information at other events, finding that people, whenever they gather, it's a good opportunity to speak to what we're trying to do, and the census was used for that many times. And that was one of our main ways of trying to get people to do it. But the challenge again was the low response rate. Which is understandable, that it was the first time that we did it. We haven't done anything like this before. I was a little naive thinking and being excited about this, thinking that everyone would run to do the census. That was not the case. So I think that that is something that I learned, that we may need to put more effort into how do we get people engaged to do it. And maybe that is in communicating better why we're doing it and how it will benefit the people in the big picture. It's definitely not something that can be done on the side of your desk, which is what I was trying to do. Um, some of the solutions may also be doing a more door-to-door promotion and delivery, um, or offer interviews by staff, so that we have trusted staff that can actually talk people through the census and take notes, and then continue to promote during events, or pairing it up with when we have our people's assembly, for instance.
And another thing that we learned was to build trust through clear messaging. So it was really successful, and then it started to develop this identity for the census. And then as the data and information is used, more project awareness will continue to grow. But at the time, one challenge was there was some uncertainty and distrust about what is the census and the purpose and the ownership. So in the future, we'd continue to clarify that it's a KCFN-led initiative and communication tool, and explain how the data are used and they're managed. And one key thing is that it happened close to the Canadian census, which is probably a source of some of the confusion. So we talked about maybe using a different name than census, like community survey, or maybe just doing it in a different year with more distance from the Canadian census. And we learned more about timing, and found that it was a great opportunity to learn ways to connect with citizens. But some of the challenges were that it ended up happening in the summer due to COVID delays, and also, again, close to the Canadian census. So it ended up being quite a long census period, because we kept changing the deadline to reach more people. And also some citizens were facing survey fatigue from other surveys they were participating in. So in future censuses, we'd aim not to do it over the summer or so close to a Canadian census, and then target efforts in a shorter, more intensified period, and avoid overlapping with other surveys. And also just in general for KCFN to be selective about the surveys that they participate in, so that citizens aren't fatigued, and that there's more buy-in when KCFN does do a survey or a research project. And finally, we learned that to promote gift cards and prizes carefully. So the gift cards and prizes were a really effective means to encourage citizens to participate in the census, and also as a means to reciprocate their contributions. But we learned that this could trigger bots that scour the internet searching for ways to earn prizes. So in the future, we wouldn't include that in the introduction of the survey, but maybe link this census to another survey where they could input their information to get the $25 card.
we've found that we learned a lot from conducting this first census for KCFN, and it's really impossible to know quite all the benefits that came from it. But there's no doubt that we benefited from it. And we learned many things that I think will really help us when we do it again. And we'll do some things differently and some things the same. But ultimately, all this work was to meet the needs of our community and the needs of our people. And I believe that the census is doing that today. So it's been well worth it, and we really enjoyed it, and it's been a good experience for us. Tleko, tleko. Chew.